What would you like people to know about your work in permaculture?
You can create a career for yourself in permaculture using like your previous experience. Most people have some kind of interest or career before they get into permaculture, not necessarily, and then they have some kind of crisis point where they go, what am I doing? This doesn't align with my values. And so rather than dropping their career, I think sort of embodying the principles and ethics into your whole being, really, so that everything you do aligns with permaculture. And so find somebody who's practicing what you're interested in and work with them, or call yourself a permaculture whatever designer or whatever you've been doing previously, and gradually try and embrace, incrementally improve the way that you do things.
So what's your story?
Well, I was working in advertising. So I was working as a finished artist / graphic artist in the early 90s, and built up my skills and a career in that over a number of years, and just found that the people I was working with and the things that I was doing really didn't align with my values. But at that stage, I wasn't really involved with permaculture. So I just decided to hit the road and go exploring. So I bought an old combi van, a 75 combi van, and hit the road traveling around Australia with a plan to travel around for a year, and did some freelance work at advertising agencies around the country. And as I was going, I came across permaculture. I actually saw a sign on the road that said permaculture with an arrow on it. So I followed the sign and saw another one, and ended up at Bill Mollison's place. And he was teaching a PDC at the time, and I poked my head in and he gave me a grumpy old look. So I kind of had a look around and went on my way. Yeah, I think that sort of started my journey of interest in permaculture, and I continued traveling around Australia. So the plan was to go for a year, and it ended up taking me about 5 before I got back. But I got involved with the rainbow gatherings up in Cairns, and some of the protests from there. That was sort of really amazing, because it showed me that if you really want something to happen, you've got to put in and do it yourself. So it was, my interest in intentional community, and that was my first real experience of it, other than the Confest down here in Victoria. We travelled across in a convoy after the rainbow gathering to Darwin, and got involved in some of the protesting up there at Jabiluka, and I discovered the book Introduction to Permaculture, read that, Rennie and Bill's book, while I was up in Darwin, and started just to see suburbia in a completely different way, and just going, why aren't we growing food in the streets? And yeah, it really sort of questioned everything. At the same time, I was involved in the Jabiluka protests, and that was really questioning the way society worked and exploiting natural resources. And I produced a magazine called Tribe. It was just thrown together, rag, but it was the first time of really using the skills that I'd used to do something that I believed in. So I continued traveling around Australia, and ended up down in the southwest of WA, and was working in an agency, and ended up getting involved in a protest to save the forests in the southwest. And again, I was working with the Conservation Council and Wilderness Society in Perth, and went down to a protest down in Jarrah Forest down in southwest WA. And I made this connection between the Jabiluka protests and the saving the old growth, I sort of saw them as the same thing, that it was all part of the same problem. And one thing that I really got from the protest was it was quite aggressive. Like coming from the protest side, it was very confronting to be basically telling the timber workers that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. I did want to get involved, so I wanted to check out they had a tree sit, like, because there were lots of really full-on protests happening, and there were forest workers coming into the sites and bashing people and things, and I just didn't want to get involved in that. And I thought a tree sit would be a pretty safe way to approach it. The other thing that interested me in doing that was that there was a intentional community that was aligned with the forest camps called Carter's Road Community, and that was basically originally set up as a respite for protesters. Yeah, so that's in Margaret River, and I was really interested in going there. So being a part of the forest campaign gave me a ticket in to go to Carter's Road after I came down from the tree sit. So that was the beginning of a whole nother journey. Arriving at Carter's Road Community, I met up with Jody Lane and Chris Lee and a bunch of other amazing forest protesters, and the house that they'd set up as a respite for forest protesting became an unintentional community, and it was permaculture based. So it was an unintentional permaculture community, and it had, I don't know, I guess a dozen residents or something like that, and a whole bunch of other people coming through the place fairly regularly. And at the time that I arrived, the core members were about to go away for a Joanna Macy retreat, and they needed somebody to come in and look after the place while they were away. So I offered to do that for 2 weeks, and ended up staying there for about 2 years.
Wow.
And during that time, David Holmgren was traveling down the West Coast, and I was really curious who this other fellow was because I'd only heard of Bill. And so I went out to meet and hear him speak, and then I offered for him and Oliver and Sue to come over and see what we were doing at Carter's Road, which is now called Fair Harvest. Yeah. So yeah, it's still going, but in a different form. Yeah, so David came over and stayed for a while with Sue and Oliver, and we showed them the forest plantation that we've been working on and the gardens, and I let David know that I wanted to do work that I could, if he needed help with graphic artwork or design, let me know. Yeah, so he got in touch with me. So I returned back to Melbourne after a couple of years in Perth, a few years over that way. He told me that he was putting together a book about the principles and wanted some help to do the designs for the icons. So that was the first permaculture project that I did, was the principle icons. Yeah, and probably my passion is really around visual communication and helping people get an understanding in different levels. So you get an initial sort of grasp of what something is, and then you can go deeper and deeper if you so desire. And that sort of aligns really well with visual communication and the way an advertisement's set up, because sort of grabbing someone's attention and layering depth into that. After doing the icons, I was interested in how do you present that information in a way that's a bit more digestible to people, because the book was pretty hard going, I think, for a lot of people, especially as an entry-level book. Yeah, it's not really suitable. So at the time I was searching for how to find out more about permaculture, and everything I found on the internet was really around people's projects and farms and things like that. There wasn't really anything that just explained what permaculture was. So I looked at incorporating the icons and work that I did and the work that David did and the essence into a website, which is the Permaculture Principles website. So 2009 or 10 or something like that. And that was around the same time that David Arnold was working to put together the permaculture calendar, which was all about the same kind of thing, about helping people get an understanding of what the design principles were. So we worked together on developing the calendar and have sort of merged the calendar in with the website over the years. The principles website was pretty basic initially. It was really just sort of a summary of the principles and ethics, and it involved sort of selling the calendar. I worked with David and Sue's son, Oliver Holmgren, on a upgrade to the site, and we incorporated a store and also started to we developed a store for the Holmgren design website as well. I was selling books and that from under my bed in my bedroom just here after I built this place. And then my mother moved into town and she had a big shed out the back. So we moved over there and set up a little warehouse. So we started selling books both from the Holmgren design site and the principal site from there. And then we started wholesaling books. In Retro Suburbia, Art of Frugal Hedonism and Retro Suburbia came out, and that's when the business sort of really took off. So we started employing, we've got Christine who's working with us to help manage that and handle all of the sales. And yeah, we've been developing the distribution side of the business for selling primarily David's books, but also other permaculture self-published books. And I've also been involved working with Dave and Sue in doing the artwork for Retro Suburbia, quite a number of their titles. Yeah, Earth Restorer's Guide to Permaculture is the last one, the most recent one that I was involved with, but I worked with Emma Odell, who now works with us as well. So she handled the artwork, but I was sort of directing that with her. So yeah, it's managed to tie together all of my interests, really, particularly the Retro Suburbia project, because the house that I've built here in Seymour, Abdullah House, is one of the case studies in the book, and is lots of the things that I've been doing are in that book. Helps to tell my story, and I've managed to do the artwork, and now I'm distributing and selling, and it's the whole box and dice in that book for me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.